Okay, we're back here with the ACE Theological Company talking about God's grace, God's purpose, and God's plan for humanity. And keep in mind that human destiny depends on God's purpose. It doesn't depend on free will. It doesn't depend on a plan B, as if God screwed up plan A and he had to send Christ to rescue all those who would cooperate with their free will. No, God's purpose results in human destiny. Human destiny is wrapped up in God's purpose. Okay, so I'm back here with Brother Moose, and we wanted to talk about something funny that has recently happened to Mormons everywhere. They seem to know this. An earthquake happened in Salt Lake City, and it shook the Mormon Temple. And on top of the Mormon Temple, there's this gold foil thing that was made out of macaroni by Mrs. McGillicuddy's 5th grade class in 1935, and they wrapped this angel Moroni. They made it out of macaroni, and they wrapped it in gold foil, and they put a gold trumpet in its mouth, and and the earthquake shook it, and it shook the trumpet right out of his mouth. And so my joke with the Mormon brothers in my neighborhood, I told them that the church is going to replace the Mormon trumpet with a gold harmonica to keep up with the times, so I just thought that was funny. Anyway, the one of the things that I wanted to talk about with Brother Moose is that the belief, a lot of people have superstitious beliefs, and they think, that this happened for a sign, and maybe that happened for a sign. And so the trumpet falls out of Moroni's mouth during this real earthquake. I don't think Mrs. McGillicuddy's class actually made the thing out of macaroni.
It's like some kind of gold or bronze statue of some sort.
Right.
Yeah. And Moroni is the last prophet in the Book of Mormon.
Did he eat macaroni?
No.
Well,
But yeah, I don't think
know
he didn't like feathers in his hat, so he took the trumpets. But it's like the trumpet, the signal, the sign, the last word,
right
before the second coming.
So this trumpet has fallen out of his mouth, and some people may think this may be a sign that the Mormon church is at the end of the ropes, right? And that it might cause them to doubt the whole thing. And I'm sure the engineers actually did the best trumpet they could, but it was a pretty serious earthquake around this area. But what I wanted to personally say about signs, because Brother Moose was asking me, what's the deal with signs? And signs were a heavy-duty thing in the Old Testament. See, we're under apple tree, and an apple just fell, and that's a sign, right? That we've got gravity on our side. That's what Newton discovered, right?
What the heck?
So, we were talking about signs, and signs were a big deal in the Old Testament when God was working through the prophets and showing them signs. And then, I'm telling you that Paul came along, God, knocked him off his horse, blinded him, and changed his name. His name was Saul of Tarsus, and gave him a new name. And this word, Paul, it actually means pause. God has paused all of these super duper miracles in the Bible, like speaking in tongues and signs and, casting lightning out of the sky to blow up a church, or earthquake. God has paused all of that stuff because now we're in the administration of grace, as Paul calls it, in which God is graciously dealing with humanity, and he's not operating with power and signs. He will again in the future, according as I understand biblical prophecy. But right now, there's a pause in all of that stuff. If your favorite Mormon prophet or angel or whatever the heck he was is blowing a trumpet and the trumpet falls out of his mouth, it's not necessary.
He was both. The angel Moroni was a prophet.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the trumpet fell out of his mouth. And in the Old Testament, I might compare the trumpet falling out of his mouth to the Tower of Babel, it's this big, great edifice, and something goes wrong, so it's a big embarrassment. I think a harmonic.
Because, supposedly everything that goes right, God made it so, or he's protecting it. So then suddenly, when God's not protecting his trumpet,
right. What
does that mean?
What does that mean? Right. Okay.
But, it's interesting. What's the logic of this? That, everything's a sign from God when things go good. And then suddenly, when things are going bad, it must be just God's, testing us.
No.
Trials and
Paul tells us.
Suffering.
Paul tells us in Romans chapter 11.
It's all part of the plan.
Verse 36, that all is of God. And in our last talk, I was comparing Baptists and Mormons. And one of the things that blows the Baptists away, and I'm kind of sure that it might blow the Mormons away too, is Isaiah 45:7 says that God created evil. What? God created evil? Yeah.
Well, I always thought he made humans, and then these natural desires that we have, they, are often called evil, but it's like God made us this way. He made us horny. He made us whatever he made us.
There's a problem here, see? Evil and sin are two different things.
Okay.
The word sin means to miss the mark. You made a mistake. The word evil in the Hebrew, it means to break. It's like there's no moral consequence to evil. Falling out of a tree is an evil experience. The trumpet falling out of Moroni's mouth, nobody was hurt. Nobody was hurt. So I don't know if it's an evil thing or not. But evil has no moral consequence to it. The Titanic going down was an evil experience. But it doesn't mean that there was sin involved. So sin and evil are not synonyms. Check this out. In the book of Genesis, there's a tribe mentioned of left-handed people. 700 people are left-handed in this particular tribe. And it says that they could throw a stone and hit the target within a hair's breadth and not sin. Get it? Most of the Bible translations say they could hit the target within a hair's breadth and not miss. But it's the same Hebrew word. Miss and sin are the same Hebrew word. So it's not that God sinned when he created evil. God created good and evil because there's only one God. There's not two gods battling it out. A good God and an evil God.
Kind of like I used to always bring up when we'd have these chats. Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory, the guy that tempts them works for the big guy upstairs.
There you have it. Just a metaphor.
Yeah.
A movie metaphor.
Oh, it's a sign.
At least it's not a golden apple.
It's a sign, dude.
It's not a golden apple falling down.
It said Newton on it. Or Buddha or something. Didn't they all sit under trees? Well, actually, even Joseph Smith, he was under a grove of trees when God came and talked to him. It's an interesting vision. They call it the first vision, and there's actually the two different beings, the God the Son and the God the Father. Mm-hmm. But Paul just says he sees Jesus, right? In his vision?
Yeah.
Is he under a tree or anything?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Nothing fell on his head.
Carry on.
But he was blinded.
Brother.
He was blinded. I wonder if that could be a metaphor, that Paul was blinded. Because Paul was a proud Jew, and he thought he was doing the Jewish thing by persecuting the Christians.
A proud Jew? He's a proud Roman.
He was a Roman, but he was also a Jew. And he was...
He was?
Yeah. And he was out and about making havoc among the Christian sect.
I didn't know he was also a Jew.
Oh, a proud Jew. A Pharisee.
But he was killing the Jews.
He was killing some Jews who were Christians. He was killing Christians because they were bad for business.
It was this new
I've
movement.
got a recommendation for anybody watching this. If you want a mind-blowing experience, sit down and read the entire book of Acts at one sitting. It takes you about 2 hours. Just read the book of Acts at one sitting. In fact, read it out loud. It is a really jam-packed, like a novel, like a movie script. It's just filled with lots of twists and turns, starting with the resurrection of Christ all the way to the dispersion, and introduces Paul's wonderful ministry of grace, which I need to talk about too, because in a past video we talked about Colossians 1:25, where it says God gave it to Paul to complete the word of God. There's this verse, these 2 chapters in Galatians, chapter 1 and chapter 2. I love using those chapters to talk to the Mormon missionaries who come knocking on my door, because they want me to read this, another testament. And because I say, hey, did you hear about the fist fight? The fist fight that Paul and Peter got into. Paul had to give him a bloody nose and put him in a chokehold and made him tap out. Why? Because Peter was bringing to these guys in Antioch, the brothers in Antioch, the gospel of the uncircumcision, the stuff that's filled with pride and works, which is meant only for the Jews. And Paul would have none of it, because Paul's message to the Gentile brothers is all about grace. And what does grace mean? It means you can't merit God's favor. You can't earn God's favor. You can't deserve God's favor. But Peter shows up at Antioch with the brothers there, and he starts putting them down. And Paul had to put him in a chokehold. You can read about it in Galatians chapter 1 and chapter 2, and he clearly says, when we finally finish our fight, we determine that I have the gospel of the uncircumcision. Peter, James, and John have the gospel of the circumcision. What's the circumcision? That's a sign that you're a proper Jew. So Paul has the gospel. What does the word gospel mean? It's just a common noun in the New Testament. What kind of gospel? It just means good news. You could have good news about somebody giving you $1,000. You could have good news about somebody saving your car from a car wreck. It just means good news. So the fact that there are more than one gospel shouldn't surprise us, because it's just a common noun. The gospel of the uncircumcision is not the same thing as the gospel of the circumcision. Paul was given the gospel of the uncircumcision, which is all about grace and faith. Peter, James, and John were given the gospel of the uncircumcision, which is all about grace and works.
What do people commonly ask you about with this ring?
Oh, well, it was put out originally by a steak company. It means choose the ribeye. And they had the best ribeye.
Like a fireside at the steak center?
That's right, yeah.
You just go there and get some steak.
So what was our topic anyway? How did we start this one?
I don't know, but let's go back to the choosing the ribeye.
Choose the ribeye.
No, actually, any Mormon knows it means choose the rat.
Yeah. And I don't have anything against choosing the right. I think it's just a fine concept. But we're not saved by our works. That's the message that you're going to get here. We're not saved by our works. We're saved by the work of God in the cross of Christ.
So why do you wear a Mormon ring? Just because it's cool?
I'm in Mormon Town.
That's cool.
When in Mormon Town, do what the Mormons do.
There we go. All right. Any last words?
Grace to you.
Grace to you.